And hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Mouse Minds. I'm joined by the amazing cast that is here with us every week, and let me unmute their mic so they can say hello. Of course, we have Luella,
Hello.
Lisa,
Hi.
and Michael.
Hello. Love how the two
Here-
Florida guys have their ceiling fans cranking.
Yeah,
Par for the course.
we don't have amazing weather like Luella in Southern California. Um,
But I have a small window of comfort. That's the part when you live here in California.
I have a small window of comfort too. It's called January. And that's it. The rest of the year is just shot for me. No, all right. Well, we are live here on YouTube and we are streaming again on Facebook this week. We are live streaming. And this week we wanted to explore Disney park music. We wanted to take you kind of on a little journey and talk about some of our favorite melodies that fill the air as you stroll down Main Street, USA, or in Adventureland, or even Epcot, Hollywood Studios. Some of the iconic music that not only fills the lands and immerses you in these amazing areas of the parks, but also immerses you in the attractions. Unforgettable songs that you can never forget because you rode those attractions a million times and you have them stuck in your head. So, we are going to kick things off. And I think that we should just dive right into it here and kick it off with I'm going to get everyone's thoughts on probably the most iconic Disney theme park music that there ever was. And even if you aren't a Disney fan, you know exactly what this song is, and you probably know it word for word. And that would be "It's a Small World." Now we all know this song. We've heard it a million times. We hear it in our dreams. We hear it in our while we're awake. But no, we don't really hear that. But it is amazing. It is a uh, bit of audio that has stood the test of time, and it is the only audio that I've ever had where the actual creator of the audio or of the music apologized to a live audience for creating such a, let's just say, memorable uh, attraction song. So I'm of course speaking of Richard Sherman, who did apologize to a crowd of D23 guests for creating "It's a Small" or the music for "It's a Small World." So, what are your guys' thoughts on Small World? I mean, honestly, I love it. I can't get enough of it. Iconic attraction. I love it a lot more at Disneyland because I think it looks way better at Disneyland than it does in Florida. Although I do appreciate our attraction as well. But what are your guys' opinions on it? Dive right in.
I love It's a Small World, and I've had the pleasure of meeting Richard Sherman. I actually was selected one time when they were having the anniversary to ask him a question, and I asked him how long it took him to make, and he said it happened really quickly. He wrote the song really quickly. So I think that you don't need to, you just have to hear the first couple bars and you know exactly where it comes from. You know that it's a Disney ride. You know that it's about children and unity. And I think that it has such a hook that it did exactly what it needs to do. I have also seen it at Hong Kong Disneyland, and I love the one at Hong Kong Disneyland because it's different colors on the outside. It looks exactly like the Disneyland one, and they have a more expansive Filipino section, and I'm Filipino. But in general, I think the song. I'm sure it gets on everyone's nerves if you especially get stuck with, but I think everyone will agree it does exactly what it's supposed to do and talk about how it's just a small world and we're all really the same. That's my opinion.
There really is a great underlying theme in that song, and although it's basically on repeat throughout the whole attraction, I think we can agree that the theme of togetherness and that we are all basically the same in so many ways is a really awesome and is really awesome and what makes this attraction really great But as much as people may have made jokes in the past or find Small World annoying, I guess you could say to an extent. Um, it is one of those attractions that you don't forget. Everyone thinks of the Disney parks and Small World, and it's been around forever. So this is just I mean, to have that kind of status is just amazing.
And actually, I think the song predates its existence in the parks. Right? That was started off at the World's Fair, so it wasn't even written. I mean, eventually, yes, it was going to be moved to the park, but that song existed before it even made its way into Disneyland. The same way you've seen it overseas, I've seen it in Disneyland Paris. What's great is that you don't need to speak a certain language to be able to appreciate the ride. It's not a spoken word thing where if I don't speak English or I don't speak um, French or whatever, I can't enjoy the ride. It's sung in different languages, so there's something there. No matter where you're visiting from, when they get to your motherland, you'll have that opportunity to hear the song, and you can at least know part of what's going on without having to understand the English.
That is a very good point, and I can attest to that, having ridden Small World in at Disneyland Paris. That it's one of those things where you sing the words, and although it's in another language being sung to you, you still know the words word for word as you're riding through that amazing attraction. So I can agree with that 110%. Lisa, do
In
you have any
Disneyland,
thoughts? Or Michael?
I was going to say, and I haven't seen it in any other park, but the Disneyland Paris one was very reminiscent of the Disneyland version with the outdoor setting and the garden set up and the big clock. So as you said, I appreciate that a lot more than ours that's tucked inside for whatever reason they decided to go that way.
So that is one attraction that I got stuck on for an extended period of time. I thought we were going to evacuate, but we did not. So I think I liked it a little bit more before being stuck on it um, for a total of about an hour. So, like I said, I liked it more before that. I think it is iconic. I feel like everybody should ride it. However, that super catchy, very memorable tune does work my nerves a little bit. I know. Somebody had to be that person, and it's me. So
There's always one in the crowd.
I
And
know. Well, but I still like the first time that I go with someone to the parks, I still go on it. Because I feel like they should go on it. However, it's not one that I will wait for. It's not, you know, even though I used to do missions and I really believe in the lyrics. It is a small world and but anyways, I will just say it's a very catchy, timeless tune.
That has left you scarred for life. That's okay.
Yes, I am scarred for life. I will admit.
I mean, I think everyone is a little scarred from that, but as Disney fans, we love it so much.
I
Now,
do like the queue at Disneyland, though. Having everything outside, and I do like that aspect. I did, even though I'd had the extended experience on It's a Small World at Disney World. When I went to land, I still had to ride it just because I knew it was different.
well, yeah, I mean, how can you not ride the one at Disneyland with that amazing facade out front and actually taking the boats outside and everything else? I mean, how can you pass that up?
And if
Now,
you get the opportunity to be there on the hour or the 15 minutes, 30, watch the clock. It's so adorable. But I think the purpose of it being such a iconic song. I mean, it served its purpose. Anyone when they hear it, they know exactly where it came from.
Remember, at the time when it was written, they had sponsors to answer to, and they had to help deliver that message. So I think they did a really good job with it.
That is a key thing to think about, Michael, is, you know, a lot of the songs that we are so iconic to Disney came out of, or the older songs came out of those sponsorships. So that is a big part of Disney's history, is those sponsorships, because they played such a big role, and even to this date, you think of something like Test Track, which you know, Chevrolet has a big hand in all of the audio that is, you know, that whole attraction. So of course they have a hand in that audio as well, proving everything. And so that is a big part, I would say, of the history of a lot of the attractions. And speaking of iconic attractions, um, it was just playing here a second ago, but one of the one of my all-time favorite, I think, iconic attractions, maybe not as iconic as it used to be, but it would have to be the Carousel of Progress. That's kind of one of the other attractions that kind of started it all for the Disney parks. And hearing Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow, which was originally created for the GE Pavilion, um, and for the attraction sponsored by GE, is just an amazing, amazing piece of audio that, you know, it's one of those ones again, although it's on repeat in the attraction, you never forget it. And for me at least, it never grows old. I can sing it every time. I'm excited to sing it. I love every minute of it. And it's just one of those tunes that it almost fills you with so much optimism about the future. Just hearing that being sung. So that is just one of my all-time favorites. I don't know about you guys, but definitely one of my, and definitely my top five.
I'd say for me, it's always going to be Now Is the Time. The time of, I guess that was the first one that I heard in the attraction. So, when I was young, it's the one they switched it over.
Mhm.
The heck is this? It's a brand new song. I had no idea, that it was the original from California. But I guess I've always just had a soft spot for the best time of your life.
Well, I have to say, from being from California, Carousel of Progress left before I went to Disneyland. So I have to say, people from here don't know that song. They do play it, maybe some things when you're walking, but so since that attraction left, like early 70s, I don't think there's any memory of that song.
There's no attachment to it.
Except for people who used to go to the park before it left. So, but recently, I don't think it just doesn't. That wouldn't be on like my list or anyone else who's gone to the parks here.
That
Right,
is a
so-
very good point, because I am thinking of things from a standpoint of someone who's been going to Walt Disney World their whole life, and not someone who's going to Disneyland.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
you know, speaking of that aspect of it, what, let me ask you this then, what do you think would be some of the audio that you hold near and dear to you that someone like myself would not, because of the, you know, Disneyland versus Walt Disney World?
I would say, because it's different right now. They changed it for Star Wars, but the music of Space Mountain at Disneyland is amazing. Amazing. It changes the ride, and it's a different ride. Because if you ever got stuck and you had to ride the ride without the music, still fun, but there's always a different element, especially when the speakers are right here. And I think Michael Giacchino wrote that that score. So it's almost like you're in a movie. So I don't know if anyone from Walt Disney World has, because it's not the same, has that iconic feel. But as much as I love listening, because right now it's Season of the Force, so it's Star Wars right now, which is amazing. But then after a while, you want to hear that. I mean, there's no words to it, but when you hear it, and I think people from here, when they hear that song, they know it's Space Mountain.
I can definitely understand that. I feel like um the audio for the cue of Space Mountain here on this coast is very iconic, and I can, as I'm saying it, I can hear it in my head. I can hear that audio in my head. And even and just for just I mean just the audio walking in the line to the attraction. I mean the fact that these are things that spark emotions for us as Disney fans is just simply incredible to me. That as something as silly as waiting in line, something we shouldn't enjoy by any means, we enjoy because of the music that's being played in there, which is just amazing to me. And that's what Disney is really good at. Every small little detail matters, and you never know what someone is going to, um, you know, go home with as part of their memories.
Robert, I have to agree with you there because I'm not a coaster guy. Don't care for them. Don't need them. But when it's quiet in the parks, or even like in the night of a party, or if I'm there late and it's quiet and there's zero line, I will walk through the queue of Space Mountain just for the music. And I'll let people go ahead of me, and I'll just go and stop in each section, and then I'll take the chicken exit on the way out. But I just enjoy the Star Tunnel music and and all the music that he built into the queue. So to me, that's an enjoyable part. So I got to agree with you there.
The queue is really long. So you have a long time to listen to that music too. You think, I mean, there's been times that I hardly ever wait an hour. But if the kids really, really wanted to ride, I would wait for an hour. And but yeah, I as you started talking about the music, just walking into the queue line, I can hear, like I can hear it for sure. Um, and then like Luella was saying, like the music tends to make the ride. Um, it heightens that whole experience. So
Yeah, I don't think there's music in the queue at Space Mountain. It's mostly sound effects as if you're entering space at Disneyland. And maybe they do that purposely so that you are heightened when you're riding the ride and listening to music, since the music is such an important part of that ride.
And see, for me, that space, the Star Tunnel music is so much a part of that ride that I'm surprised they wouldn't have that on both coasts. But like I said, maybe they're building up to that's what I'm going for there. The excitement, just the anticipation of the ride, and they're trying to build that theme into the waiting experience.
I
Yes.
mean, it makes a lot of sense. I will say that Space Mountain at Disneyland is a completely different animal than Space Mountain on on at Walt Disney World. I mean, not only are you sitting right next to someone, which is completely different than getting in those cramped cars that we have here at Walt Disney World, which always feel way too small, no matter how tall you are. Um, but it is a completely different ride experience between. Well, so I can understand why you'd want to have different audio, and then of course, um, having what I do like that Disneyland does overlay or do their overlays for Space Mountain. I think that's a great way to really utilize that attraction more. I kind of wish we had something like that over here, but we do. I don't know if we had it last year or not, but I will say that the most intense ride that I've ever had on Space Mountain is when they made it completely pitch black. I did not know because typically in Space Mountain there is enough light on at least on this coast where you can actually see some of the track. There's some lighting effects in there to make it look like you're in space, where you see like the stars and the moon in it. kind of lights it up enough to where you can kind of see like the track, and it's just you have to ride it to kind of know what I'm talking about. But during the Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween, they made it completely pitch black. There was no lights whatsoever, and I have never ever in my life been disoriented on a coaster, and that made me so. I didn't know if I was coming or going. I didn't know what was going. And I'd been on that ride hundreds of times before that, and I was like, "Okay, we're gonna do this next," and then we would go the other direction. I was like, I didn't know where I was, and it was intense. So if you ever get that experience, please make take the wait, ride the attraction. One of the coolest experiences you will ever have. I know it doesn't seem like much, you know, turning off what little light they have in there, but it is absolutely makes for an amazing attraction.
No, you're right. When you can't anticipate a turn and your body can't naturally shift into the turn, and you're just getting thrown around, it's got to be disorienting.
Yeah, it was more intense than the Matterhorn, and the Matterhorn, for me at least, is pretty intense. That was the last time I rode the Matterhorn. That was a free chiropractic adjustment. I'll just leave it at that. So, all right. So moving on. So I have a list here of some iconic. Um, I made kind of a list of some iconic traction music. Let's say now, and maybe I'll get your guys' opinion on some of these here now. Of course, I think maybe second to It's a Small World, at least in my book, as far as iconic track audio would be Grim Grinning Ghost. I think we can all agree I mean, we all kind of know it off the top of our heads for the
Right.
most part, or at least know the chorus.
I agree. That was a good one. Let's see what else you pick. I have your idea.
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yes.
I mean, even people I mean, that's even been parodied by The Simpsons, you know, by lots of pop culture shows. I mean, that's been parodied. So that's a big one. We can't forget the Tiki Room. I mean, that is right up there. Another Sherman Brothers a classic right there. Let's see here. Uh, I like to think that the music from Splash Mountain is, although that has gone away, and we are now getting Tiana's Bayou Adventure. I like to think that Everybody's Got a Laughing Place is a song that, if you've been to the parks in the last 10 years, you definitely remember that, and you always remember Brer Bear saying Briar Patch, and then you fall down the mountain. So at least on this coast, I don't remember what it was like at Disneyland. But yes. So those are some of the ones that I think are just iconic to um our our parks. I also think that I think another one that is going to be iconic to both coasts as well would be Soarin'. I think Soarin', we kind of have, you know, well, we do have the same soundtrack basically on both coasts. So Soarin' would be another one that I would think that would be iconic for both uh, us and Disneyland. But other than that, what do you guys think as what is some of your favorites attractions, audio? What do you guys have? And then I'll give you kind of my list.
See, I guess the one thing, you're mentioning some of those, the iconic songs, and just, the Disney nerd in me always goes back to how, okay, yeah, the Sherman Brothers can write music, and that's what they're known for. They were a songwriting duo. Grim Grinning Ghosts and Yo Ho they were both written by somebody, an Imagineer, who never really wrote music before. He wasn't known as a songwriter. It wasn't what he did professionally. Walt charged him with coming up with something to build in here, write some of the ride show audio, and we need two catchy songs. And Exitensio, hit both of those out of the park without any formal training as a songwriter. He just somehow knew. And I guess when you're creative, you can do a lot of different things. came up with two songs that have stood the test of time across both parks.
I agree. Very catchy. You know exactly the mood you're supposed to be in when you hear the music, and you just know what the ride is. And so it's so wonderful to have all your senses kind of tingling. Maybe it's dark there and you can't hear it, you can't see anything, but you hear the music. So it really puts you into, I like to say, like the movie of what you're writing.
And when I go on, I enjoy listening for the different isolated pieces of audio. And yeah, it's all one big continuous song, but hearing the different characters singing different parts or carrying different tunes or adding their own individual aspect also enhances the ride for me. And then hearing certain ghosts or certain pirates singing different parts and singing their part. To me, that's an awesome thing. I guess I've always been an audiophile when it comes to stuff like that.
Agree.
Well, that is
Agree.
well, well, that is definitely awesome, and I can totally agree with that. Now, I want to move on to a park that I think has some of the, at least for me, but I think for a lot of people too, has some of the most. Well, I guess it depends on when you visited this park, but so I think that Epcot has some of the most recognizable tracks. I mean, I've seen I've been to Epcot countless times when they have anniversary celebrations and so on and so forth, and have seen droves, just a full park of people just singing along to songs like "One Little Spark" or "If You Can Dream It." The Tomorrow's Child, some of the older Epcot attraction music, and I really feel like as much as the songs of Magic Kingdom, Small World, things like that are iconic. Um, I really feel that Epcot music really sparks a lot of emotions in the fans. There is a lot of fans that just go crazy, myself included. I mean, some of those songs I hear them at Epcot, and I just get extremely excited just to hear them again inside Epcot. I mean, the first time when they did the 25th anniversary for Epcot and they played um um the what was it oh my gosh, If You Can Dream It, um from Horizons in the park. um that to me, just hearing that inside that park was just the most amazing experience, and I think that a lot of Epcot fans really feel that way. They have that connection with those attractions. So, I mean, what are your guys' thoughts on that? I mean, I really feel like Epcot is, out of all the Disney parks, probably the most musical park that there is, between the audio Inside World Showcase and all the different countries where you have the different audio tracks. You have the audio tracks that have changed throughout the years at the entrance to the park, the stuff inside Future World, um, all the different attractions that we've had and the different audio that we've had in those attractions. I think it really, I mean, I think Epcot is my personal favorite when it comes to um, attraction and area audio. I don't know about you
I I would tend to agree. Even thinking of, sorry, I don't know if you can hear my dog, but he's going crazy. I was thinking of, the Guardians of the Galaxy ride. I mean, the fact that you can hear one of multiple songs when you're on that is fun and exciting. Trying to get all of those. I think back to like the nighttime, even the nighttime shows. The music, everyone sings along, to the songs, or at least they will eventually if they haven't heard it very much yet. And then Voices of America, like They are amazing. I know that there are the different sounds, and I love how the fact you walk from one country to the next, and at some point you hear the music from one country fading and the next country that you're going to hear. So but I feel like the arts, I know we talk about the festivals all of the time, but it's not only the drawn or the painted artwork, it's also the musical art that's strong at Epcot.
Robin, when you're talking about the doing it for the fans and the longtime fans, and you start reminiscing, I went to the last DVC member event at Epcot, and without realizing that there was a DJ somewhere playing, and I'm walking through, what was then Future World, or used to be Future World, and all of a sudden they started playing the I just lost the word. Help me out. Oh, Interventions music.
Yes.
I heard Interventions coming out of the speakers again. And when they had Spaceship Earth lit up old school with the orange and the purple lights. And for a second, you had to stop and think, where am I? Because it completely took me back to old school Epcot. Seeing, Spaceship Earth without the little dots and the multicolored lighting that gives you a headache. It was just the old school with the floodlights lighting it up and the old music. That was an awesome moment to get caught up in.
And I think that that it's amazing to me. Like as much as we can all appreciate walking down Main Street and hearing the iconic music of Main Street USA, and all the songs as we walk down Main Street. I feel like, at least on this post, we Epcot just invokes feelings in all of us, of all the Disney fans. It's just hearing one little spark, for that matter. This is like, we get excited. Not just me. I see it with everyone. We get excited when we hear one little spark. We get excited when we hear Golden Dream, at the American Pavilion. Disney created an attraction that gets me excited to learn about the history of America and learn about history in general. Where else can you go to ride an attraction like the American Adventure and be so excited and be thrilled to hear that music at the end of the attraction? Now, I know that there may be a lot of people that don't agree with me on that, but there are a lot of people that really celebrate that attraction and really enjoy seeing that show and what they put together. And I'll never forget, one time I was at a Destination D, and Marty Sklar was doing a talk, and he looked at the audience and he said, man, if Walt could see the American Adventure, just the American Adventure, he would be so proud of everything that we have accomplished. This is exactly what he would have wanted. And that just, like, it was like, wow, that really set me back, because it really is like, when you think of Walt, he was American as it comes, and to see that, that would have been one of his greatest achievements. That attraction is that whole show, the way it works, the way they have the animatronics and everything, and then the music, the score on top of it, and how they've changed the score throughout the years to, add in more clips and more current events and things like that. Really just make that attraction, hard to beat. I know some people may see that as something to, beat the heat for 30 minutes and kind of sit inside, but in all honesty, when you really sit back and look at that attraction, it really is an amazing piece of art.
I think, coming from just the opposite end, I don't have the attachments of the music like you all do, because I wasn't going there often. And so, but what I can say and what I love about Epcot is, because of the ambient music they play when you walk in, honestly, when I step into whatever the country that I'm stepping into, I can feel the music, I can see the views, and it's wonderful. You just get lost in, for example, in Japan, in France, and Canada. So I think they're doing the effect. And I don't have any emotional attachment to like Figment and when, I just don't, because it just wasn't raised on me. But I can appreciate those that have gone there and why they love it so much, and really connect with that park.
Now, I wonder how. I mean, not to step away from Epcot, but you're saying without the connections. I wonder how, and I've never really examined it before, but a simple loop in Magic Kingdom, how it compares East Coast, West Coast. Do they just use the same music? There are different attractions in different parks where they might have taken it out of here that they still have over there. So I wonder how those two loops would line up.
Yeah, I don't know, but I know that when you play the music, it's just adding, like when you walk by the candy shop and you can smell it, it's just adding to your immersion. So it's not really slapping you in the face like, hey, you're in Frontierland, hey, you're in Tomorrowland. You just all of a sudden just absorb it and you accept it. And one of the things I love, and I think it's very iconic, they don't necessarily have to sing a song, but when you hear, the Dapper Dans, you kind of feel at home. It doesn't matter what the song they're singing. You hear the four-part harmony and you know that you're in a Disney park. So like sometimes it's just that feeling and the combination. So not necessarily what the actual song is.
It's the ambiance of
Ambiance, exactly.
a Disney park. You know, the same like I say the same thing for Fort Wilderness, the campground. You know, waking up in the morning and being surrounded by nature and kind of feeling like you're in the woods, but then hearing that horn from the ferry boat as it's taking people to Magic Kingdom and hearing that at your site and bringing you back to, oh, I'm at Disney. That's a huge thing. So those all those little things add up and create that experience. And there's tons of YouTube videos online that will have that basically have that same experience for you, with the area music and the sounds around you and so on and so forth. So I 100% understand what you're saying and agree with you. I mean, you you know, one of the things that I think that Lisa kind of touched on too was the transitions. And I think that's a big deal at Magic Kingdom. When you transition from Liberty Square to Frontierland, you don't necessarily, like you just walk over there and that music kind of carries over and it's different, but you don't notice that you're like transitioning other than what you see is different. Even sort of the land itself, what you see, it's you kind of almost like fades into Frontierland and the audio comes in, everything else kind of appears and you're there. The same applies at Disneyland too. And I think I've never I've never really taken the time to think about the transition from one land to another. But when you really step back and think about it, Disney does a really good job at that. It's not something that's kind of just like abrupt and it's there. I've never thought about that, but they do a really good job, even in World Showcase, of when you're transitioning from country to country. You have those breaks in between, and then you go into the next country, and then you have the audio and so on and so forth. So I agree that all that ambiance really adds up, and I think that's what when we hear those things, it puts us there. No matter where we are, we hear those things, and it puts us in that experience. I there was a TikTok floating around um many moons ago, and it had just the start of Festival of Fantasy and just the start of Happily Ever After and some of the other parades and at the Disney parks, and just hearing that, like I automatically would get like goosebumps because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, here comes the parade, it's time. I get excited. So I think it's if Disney has done anything to us fans, they've kind of wired that into us that when we hear these songs, something amazing is about to happen, and we get excited when we hear these things.
And you're right, because when you do have that transition, there is enough of a buffer where there is no overlap.
Mhm.
But when those parades do kick in, you've got that soft background music, and then when that parade starts, those speakers just start pumping that music out. And even if you were on the sidewalk catching a nap, you are now wide awake and you are focusing on exactly what's going on out there. That's some
And
loud, loud music when those parades are just about to start.
Mhm.
You're almost jostled when that
and
kicks
Disney
in.
and
It's
Disney
almost
does a
jolting.
great job with that too, because they don't just throw music at you, and like, for example, with the oh my gosh, um with the parade at Magic Kingdom, Festival of Fantasy, they don't just throw the music at you. There's, announcements that have been pre-recorded beforehand in 5 minutes, and it's the voice. It's not just a manager or a lead or someone on the line saying in 5 minutes it's going to be. There's actual recorded audio, and then when the parade hits and you hear those horns for the start of that audio, and that voice comes on, telling you what's coming, you get excited. And the same applies at Disneyland too. I remember when I saw Paint the Night.
Oh,
Um,
keep the
I
night. Yeah.
mean, I was literally like when that when they started that parade up and it was coming down California Adventure. I'm not afraid to admit I had tears in my eyes just hearing that, and I have seen that for so many YouTube videos online, seeing that parade and actually seeing it coming down and hearing that audio kick it off. I mean, how can you not get emotional? That is an incredible parade. Incredible parade.
Yeah, that's an amazing parade.
One of the
The
best
one
that
thing I've always, and
Disney has.
it's, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I would say the one thing, and I guess it's also the Disney nerd in me, but the fact that there's an AM and PM loop, and it must be the same in Disneyland for the Magic Kingdom, where the morning loop is a little more up tempo and they build more marches into it to kind of get you ready, and they carry you up Main Street because you're probably not hitting, the gift shops at that time. So it's just very up tempo, upbeat, carries the crowd up. In the afternoon, they switch over to a little more down tempo on the way out. It's just softer music so that you do slow down. You're not rushing for the bus. It does kind of carry you off into the gift shops because you don't have that march bringing you up. They don't want you to run past the gift shops and the coffee shops and
Mhm.
buy your last pretzel, buy your last hot dog. So the fact that they can do that psychologically with music amazes me too.
Well, everything that Disney does is done with purpose.
Mm-hmm.
The wafting of the scents on Main Street, the music, just everything that they do has a purpose to get you to go somewhere subliminally. And they do the I mean, they do an amazing job at it. I mean, it's I mean, it doesn't get any better than Disney, to be quite honest with you. I mean, you look at other parks, even places like Universal. I honestly feel like they just do not do it as well. I mean, they do have areas that have, audio and so on and so forth, but they everything, it's the detail. The devil is in the details, and Disney is by far the best at details. And the whole fact that we're having a show today based on audio in the parks proves that right there, because this is something that, you know some people may not even pick up on, but we're here discussing it, and that's how amazing that it is.
Yes.
Now let me ask you guys this. So when it comes to lands or areas inside the parks, do you guys have favorites for certain lands? Is there an area in the park that really that really gets you excited?
I've always loved the Tomorrowland music that you have playing now. And even as we were talking about before the show, the different sections that they've got music in there from attractions that do not exist anymore. And for the average guest, they're not going to understand what that is, and it doesn't matter. I love the catchy tunes. They put everything to instrumental. Some of the Toy Story music that they've built into that. Some of the resort loops, Wilderness Lodge, Epcot. I used to love the entrance music, and then each new loop that they built in, just as I got used to the last music, they changed and they put in a new music for World Discovery now. So it's just getting used to those things. Even something like the buses, where it's no longer quiet. They're playing either the music where you're headed or something related to that park or the resort. So it's a different loop on the way out than it is on the way back. So they're even building music and incorporating it there, which is awesome.
Well, not only that, it's the spiels on the transportation, the audio on the monorail. As you know, we all know, please stand clear of the doors. I mean, if I mean, I have a T-shirt somewhere that says it on there in Spanish. You know, we all remember these things. We remember the sounds from the Skyliner. Someone posted a TikTok yesterday, and without even looking at it, our short a reel the other day, and without even looking at it, I knew exactly where it was from because I heard the tones, and I was like, oh, that's the Skyliner. So we remember these things, even the monorail at Disneyland. I remember stuff from Autopia, some of the audio from Autopia at Disneyland. I mean, it's the littlest things that we think are meaningless, and we remember them the most.
I don't think I have a favorite, but it could be just walking down Main Street and just hearing all the noise, like the Dapper Dans, or maybe the band playing, or just something subtle. I think that's just my favorite part, because I think that starts my whole Disney adventure, is walking down Main Street.
I can totally in that, between that and then hearing the train and knowing there's churros close by.
Yeah, just all the noise, everything.
I was just going to say, even, I know we didn't talk about Animal Kingdom much, but I love the transitions to and from Pandora to, let's say, Africa. Like, I love just that switch. I always try to make my kids aware of the switch, between different areas, because that's one of those things they sometimes don't quite pay attention to. And I may not have noticed that either when I was a teenager, but now that they know, they will say, "Oh, do you hear that banshee? Do you hear this?" So they hear that in the environment too. So there's not a land. It'd be fun to play a little game of, which land are we, walking into? See if we all knew where we were going.
I think we'd all win that.
I think we would be fine. I think we would do well.
Yeah.
But it'd be really interesting because without even thinking about it.
Well, I don't know so much. I wouldn't say so much for me at Disneyland, but I mean, I could definitely try. I mean, I think I could. I could try.
I think if we're comparing Disneyland and Magic Kingdom, I think we would do well because the realms are similar. So now, if you're going to do Epcot and DCA, well, I think that's different. But just, the Magic Kingdom and Disneyland's Magic Kingdom, I think that they had a similar footprint layout.
I agree.
They definitely do, and a lot of a lot of similarities there. So yes, definitely, and that you get. I mean, although different castles, but you get kind of the same feelings when you walk down Main Street at Magic Kingdom as you do at Disneyland. I mean, there's a little bit more of there's more feeling I think at Disneyland for me personally, just because I know that Walt has walked in. I'm walking in Walt's footsteps, as they say. Walking around Main Street, he's walked up and down it. So that is amazing to me. But the feeling is very much the same, very much similar sounds. But you're right, comparing a DCA to an Epcot or something like that is definitely a something that would be difficult. Now, um, before we um, really kind of close out here, because this has been a great topic, I want to ask you guys here. Do you guys have? I'll do this. So I'll say Hollywood Studios for us on the East Coast, and then I'll say DCA for Luella on the West Coast. Do you have anything that really stands out to you at any of those parks, or for both of you? Anybody who wants to.
Tower of Terror. I think there's a lot of sounds there, and who could forget Rock and Roller Coaster? Like that whole that's totally based on a lot of music. But anyways, those are where I go to automatically. But there's the Frozen sing along. Um, Walking into Batu is completely different. So, anyways, I don't know if I went out of order, but there are many areas at Hollywood Studios that I can think of, because Rock and Roller Coaster and Tower of Terror being pretty much they're kind of right next to each other. They make no sense to me, but once you enter enter those queues, into those lines, you forget one is right next to the other. So
Well, you have kind of that whole area there between Sunset Boulevard, um, Tower of Terror, and Rock and Roller Coaster. It's all like right there. So you have those kind of three transitions, and then you even have Phantasmic off to the right there. So you have almost like
right.
four transitions. So you know, you when I think about that, I've never really thought about this. It's crazy. I've never really thought about this, but thinking about those transitions, you would think it would almost be overwhelming having all that right there and going through all these different. But it's really not. The way that they do it, the way that the music is placed, it's you don't notice it at all. Even like when you step into Toy Story Land, they have kind of that entry there that you walk into, and the characters are right there, saying howdy to you and everything else, and then you kind of walk into the land and there's the audio and everything else for each attraction. So it's amazing, and going into Batu. I mean, the transition, even just the physical transition from where you are into Batu is amazing. I think having that, it just it's almost like how Universal is trying to do now with Epic Universe and the portals. It's like the same thing. It's almost like you're stepping into a portal with like Batu, and you walk into this whole, you enter that, basically that tunnel, and then you walk into that area. So it's really amazing how they did that.
I was just there last night, and it was hitting me that going in or out of that tunnel is a bit more of a transition than going the back way into Toy Story Land, where there is no tunnel, there is nothing except for a couple of blind turns that separate the two, and yet you don't hear any musical overlap, and you don't necessarily, you don't get the vantage point from both parks, from both areas. So you did a great job with that too. And like you said, the music, it's softer as you're entering, and you don't have that jarring, the spaceships overhead, because you don't want to hear that from the other side of the tunnel, or you don't want to hear that from Toy Story Land. So there's a lot of thought that goes into this and how they plan it out. And someone's getting paid big bucks for the right reasons, because they're doing an amazing job with those transitions.
Well, that, and when you walk, when you start walking and you're getting closer to the Millennium Falcon, things get a little more exciting. The music gets a little more upbeat and exciting around the Millennium Falcon too. So those little transitions that you don't really notice, now you're getting, hyped up to go on this attraction. So I've like I said, I've never really thought of those transitions before, but I'm going next time I go to the parks, I'm really gonna look out for that and see how that plays out because it really is something that, you know, Disney has done so well that, someone who goes all the time like myself, I've never really took the time to actually notice because I just didn't notice it. I just thought this was stepping into another world.
And I hope that's something that we accomplished tonight. We've encouraged or inspired, folks the next time they're at the parks, whether it's tomorrow or next year or whenever your next trip is, to stop and listen. Everyone will look around and you find all your hidden Mickeys, and that's all fine and nice. But use your ears next time and notice the transition and notice the music that you might not have heard before. Are there songs that you all of a sudden, oh, wait, I didn't know that was part of that loop? See what you can catch and really start to use other senses besides your eyes. There's so much out there.
Especially now with Test Track going down for refurbishment in the future here, and whatever that's going to look like. Really take the time to, especially with an attraction like that that's going to be refurbished here, really take the time to, really listen to the audio and I mean, it's, I mean, even just Test Track, which most people I know don't think of the audio at all, has some pretty awesome, like, just amazing music. I mean, it's. I mean, it's not the star of the show like, let's say, an Imagination is, but one Little Spark, I should say, but it is still amazing, amazing music.
I'm going to tell you, sometimes when I'm in Epcot, and I'll just walk around just for the music. I love that little, and it's only 20 minutes long, but the music loop outside of Test Track.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy that. I mean, yeah, sure, you have that little, you get the cars going around every few seconds, but enjoy that music too. So I think you're right. I think Epcot is probably my favorite park as far as loops and background music.
Yeah, I can personally say that Epcot is my personal walking track. A lot of nights I just go there to, walk a couple miles, just walking that loop around World Showcase and just like you said with Main Street, taking it all in, hearing all the sounds of the different countries, and then hearing the excitement of the people who are there, and maybe the people that have had a little too much to drink. But those people are part of the experience too. But hearing all that as you walk around Epcot and walking around 3 4 times, and not only just hearing that, but also smelling all the booths, smelling the food from the restaurants, seeing the buildings for the attractions, seeing the Stave Church, things like that. All those things really, um,
Yeah,
add to that.
all the senses are touched.
Yep.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, before we close things out here, I wanted to go ahead and I'll just put this out there for everyone, and we'll close it out with this. If you had to pick one piece of audio that would be the most important to you when it comes to Disney music, could be attraction, could be a land, could be anything, in a park, what would that be for you?
For me, it's easily Tomorrowland. It's this exact loop that you're playing right now. This is, to me, the ultimate Disney music, or anything from Tomorrowland, whether it's Spaceship Earth, Space Mountain. Star Tunnel is a close second, but I got to go with this background loop for me.
I'm gonna say, and it wasn't talked about, but I'm gonna say Cars Land. I think the moment that you enter Cars Land, and like I said, I'm not a Cars movie fan, but it's so well done, and especially if you're there at dusk and you hear the shaboom shaboom. I think that encompasses really what Imagineers, if you let them do what they do best, you get good stuff.
Lisa?
I don't know. I was trying to think which one. Oh, I don't know which one. Oh, I do like Pirates is a must do beginning of trip, and towards the end of the trip we must go Adventureland on into Pirates. So I would have to just say that the whole Pirates soundtrack, the sights, the smell, the gunpowder smell, all of the things. That's what I would say. Other than, I know we didn't say. I mean, I do like the nighttime fireworks shows at the castle. So any of those would be. It's really hard for me to say one thing. I don't think I can.
But you
Well,
almost did, so no problem.
it is
Almost. I went to two.
it is very hard for me to pick. I could honestly pick any attraction from Epcot's history, World of Motion, Horizons. They're all iconic tracks, but if I had to pick one, I'm going to go with One Little Spark because, I mean, personally for me, it doesn't, other than maybe Small World, it doesn't get more memorable than that. Um, most if you've been to Epcot in the last 20 years, you have probably heard some iteration of that song at the park, and it doesn't get any better than that. And maybe that's just because that was my childhood. That's what I grew up with. I grew up with that attraction and seeing the Dream Finder and everything else. But it's just there's just something comforting in that song, and there's something comforting in that attraction, and I think there's just the greatest message of using our imagination and not letting not letting our realities get in the way of our thoughts. So like they say, if you can dream it, you can do it. So I think that is an excellent piece there. Well, I think that's gonna do it for this week's show. Did you guys have anything else that you want to add before we close it out?
No, just keep listening. Open your ears. Listen to the music.
All right, guys. Well, that has been it for this week's show. I definitely want to thank all of the hosts for joining us this week, Luella, Lisa, and Michael for joining us this week. And before we close out this show, I want you to remember, whether you're young or just young at heart, there's always a little bit of Disney magic waiting for you. So thanks for joining us this week and joining our show. And remember, like I said, if you can dream it, you can do it. So join us next week and follow us live every Tuesday on YouTube. You can watch us live streaming on YouTube. And I promise you, this week I will get a Facebook page set up for our show so we can stream live to that on Facebook as well. And then, of course, you can catch us every Friday at 5 p.m. On your favorite podcasting platform. With that being said, I want to thank you all for joining us this week. We will see you all next week. And everybody have a great rest of your week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.